Hey, deserving listeners, sister wives, let's watch. My beard is getting fuller. I don't know how I feel about it, but it's happening. Let's watch.
Actually say that we're all gathered here for a special occasion. Guess what? In 7.5 months, Truly won't be the little one.
All right, so it's the beginning of season 3. And by the way, I am planning on not reacting to every little bit that I watch, because if I'm going to get to season 18 at some point in my lifetime, I can't react the way that I normally do to TV shows. Plus, a lot of people have been commenting and emailing saying that there's a fair amount of repetitiveness in the storylines for the next number of seasons. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to manage it, but I am going to try some methods of trying to speed things up, at least for y'all. But we are at the beginning of episode 1, season 3, and Robyn is pregnant, and she is first. She went to Mary, and they had a conversation. There were a couple comments about that. It seemed that it both was a good gesture of Robyn, but also a little condescending, because, and Mary even kind of said something in that direction. What do I want to say? It seemed a little condescending because it seems like what Robyn. So I think it's both true. What am I trying to say? I think it's both true and also condescending or assumptive for Robyn to say things like, I'm really worried about Mary now that I'm pregnant, because Mary, there's a phrase that Robyn said, because Mary's body won't let her get pregnant, I think was the phrase. And so on one hand, it's like, oof, that's an assumption there. But Mary basically indicated that's true, and she is sad, and she was essentially intimating that she was sad with Janelle and Christine's pregnancies as well. And it's a sore subject for Mary. But Mary is differentiated enough to have a little bit of sadness, but also be very happy for others. And she seemingly was genuinely happy for Robyn. But Mary said something like, I don't like that everyone has to tiptoe around me. And I don't know what that meant. I don't know if that was just like, hey, people, like, stop tiptoeing around, because that can be really bothersome. I've been the recipient of that kind of thing. Not about this topic, of course, but about other kinds of things. It's just, it can be, the only story that pops in my head is I had a friend who worked in a hospital, and she had a student that she was teaching. It's a teaching hospital, University of Washington Medical Center. And she was teaching a student, and they work in the same wing. And whenever she would walk down the hallway and he would be coming towards her, the student, he would always like really get out of the way and be like, oh my God, okay. And she is thinking, what are you doing? And the gesture comes across as nice, right? Like, wow, that person is being very nice to me. They're very considerate. He's really trying to make sure that he's not in my way. That's good, right? But then there's this other message that is underneath, which is, you are a scary person, and you would yell at me or you would get upset or something if I didn't just like fling myself out of the way, or I'm trying to communicate to you just how self-sacrificial I am so I can like suck some sort of compliment or appreciation from you. It feels, at the very least, exaggeratory, but at worst, manipulative on some level. So for Robyn, a different approach, if I guess I were in Robyn's shoes, would be to go to Mary and say something like, hey, I don't know exactly how you're going to feel about this, but I just felt like it was important to tell you first that what I'm about to tell you. But I don't want to make any assumptions about how you're going to feel about it, but I just want to tell you that I'm pregnant. And then if Mary said whatever she's going to say, and then if you're Robyn, you could say something like, I don't know how you feel about things if this is, I know a little bit about what's happening that maybe this would upset you in some way, in some minor way, in addition to being happy. So, how do you feel? That sounds really clunky too. Of course, it wouldn't be on camera, would be the preference. But there was also something that Mary said, which was, she's like, well, at this point, it would be weird for me to get pregnant. My daughter's 16, and it just would seem strange. And I don't know what that says, because I think the assumption is that for the sister wives that they are always up for getting pregnant, and the more the better. And they're the only end point is when biologically it just doesn't work out for them, seemingly. Or maybe there's a point in the timeline where they're like, the pros versus the cons. So I don't know if Mary is at the very beginning of reckoning with that, now that they're living in separate homes, and there's less of a collective. That's the other thing to think about is just the immense transition that this whole family has gone through. It's huge. Being on the show, social media was a thing. When did this show start? 2010. So social media was certainly 2010, right? That's when it started. Looking at my notes, yeah, filmed in 2010, so maybe aired in 2011. I'm not sure, but also living in separate homes, and I'm just not a fan of the kids being exposed to this sort of stuff. I'm not a fan of anyone being exposed to this stuff, but particularly children. Anyway, so we saw that. And then now they're telling the whole family. So let's see how the family reacts.
Hey! Yay! Congratulations! Awesome!
When Christine came up to me, just bright and shiny, teary, I was one down,
And this is going to be the first baby in Las Vegas.
That's cool.
First baby in Nevada.
And the 17th.
I'm hoping that everybody.
All right, yeah, people are being kind. It's not as impactful now as it would be before when they all lived together. Now, for everybody, it would be more like having an actual sister have a child, right? You're more of an auntie, although I don't know how they're going to work out their division of labor. I guess I was assuming that it would just be completely divided, that all the households would do their own thing. But I don't know. Anyway, so, people are being nice. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So whether we're aware of it or not, we are often comparing ourselves to other people. Like, hey, that friend's marriage, it seems better than mine, or that friend is thinner than me. And these comparisons are natural, but when they become more intense, it's often due to an ongoing feeling of inadequacy. Of course, therapy can help with this. It's one of the easiest things to work on in therapy, really. These comparisons are often just below the surface, and when we take the time in therapy to investigate these automatic thoughts, we are given a chance to really look at these and change these patterns. Well, one place you can find a therapist is at BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. So stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
He, was okay with it. I noticed a couple of the teenagers didn't say a thing. Aspen and Maddie didn't smile. They wouldn't even look at me. They were sort of just sitting there like this.
Well, Robyn would know those two teenagers, a lot better than I would. Maybe y'all know them better than I do as well, particularly as the seasons progress. But one possibility is that the teenagers are just being teenagers. Not every teenager for sure, but a lot of teenagers, because of their insecurities and their interests, during a family meeting like this, they're just waiting to leave and they're not interested, or they're just shy and they don't want the spotlight, or they're unsure, or they don't even really give a crap. It's like, who cares? I barely know this woman, and supposedly she's married to my dad and she's going to have a kid. I don't know. I've experienced this many times before. Who cares? I don't know. Or, well, what would be my speculation based on what I know so far as to why the teenage girls would be, well, maybe it's just change overkill. They've been through so many changes that they're just thinking, yet another change? I don't know how I feel about this.
And I was like, oh, shoot. You know, I was... Sorry.
Yeah, that would be hard. If you're in Robyn's shoes, the feeling of, oh crap, am I going... There's so much at stake regarding the blending of the families. I don't know if I said this before, but I've been thinking it, that it's tempting to see like, well, it's just another sister wife. What's the big deal? But it's really a game changer, because the first three were in the very beginning and they were pretty closely introduced around the same time. And I think from my memory, they didn't have any kids until all three were there, if I'm remembering right. So they had a chance to bond, to get to know each other, and then the kids are added. The kids are all born into that situation. Then all of a sudden, boom, you have Robyn enter years and years later, and she's coming with kids, and then they're separate. You know, they're not really given a chance to live together and bond. So yeah, so for Robyn, there's of course a lot of concern about being accepted, and I would guess that no matter how well things are going to go, she's always going to feel like she's an outsider to some extent, because she didn't experience all the things that they experienced.
And it stung a little bit, because I wasn't really sure at the time, you know, what to think.
And I looked around and I noticed that Mariah wasn't there. And I had a feeling of why. And so I went upstairs. She was in her bathroom and just kind of struggling.
Oh, so it sounds like Mariah, Mary's only child, was struggling. I'm not a fan of this camera invading the space, because it looks like Mariah didn't want to be filmed. So I'm going to limit how much I show on YouTube here.
Hey.
Has emotions. She just doesn't know what to do. Mariah was having a hard time, not with the fact that Robyn was pregnant, but with the fact that I'm not able to be.
Yeah, that was my suspicion, because I can't imagine, from what I know, why Mariah would be upset about yet another kid. I mean, how many kids? 13? So what's the difference between 13 and 14? Well, actually, no, there's 16, right? Because of Robyn's kids. So what's the difference between 16 to 17 kids? It's not like I can't envision that being a major factor, but it's a reminder of Mary's inability. Yeah, and I hadn't thought about for Mariah how maybe stigmatizing, or how they would interpret this. And of course, it's their world, you know, because in my world, this at least I don't think would affect people. But to her, she would feel like a freak. You know, it's like, yeah, me and my mom, we're the freaks, that it's only the two of us. Meanwhile, everyone else is like dozens of children, you know, several kids. I'm going to look at my list again here. Janelle with 6, and Christine with 6 at this point, right? So there's Aspen, so 6 after Truly. So for Mariah, it could feel like there's something wrong with the two of them. I don't know if Mariah has ideas or has been told that maybe the pregnancy was complicated and might have made it more difficult for Mary to get pregnant in the future. I don't know. But this also raises this question about how much of the adult trauma that the children are absorbing. Is Mary confiding a lot in Mariah? I don't know. Maybe y'all know. But that wouldn't be unusual, right? Mary, I don't know. The dynamics between the three sister wives is hard to figure out. There's talk about a lot of bonding and a lot of communication, but then there's signs that they don't seem to really know each other and talk in depth about what's really going on. I don't know. And that could be absolutely a product of their religious sect, that you don't talk with each other. I don't know that, of course, but cults will often, I mean, there's a variety of experiences. Some cults, and I don't know if they're in a cult, but some cults are very interested in a lot of sharing and exploration for various reasons, but some actually, as a way of control, will basically create a situation where the members learn that it's best to just not even acknowledge your needs to yourself, and thus you don't talk about it. But anyway, it just makes you wonder, it's just a total speculation, that for Mary, for the rest of the family, there's a lot of interacting, a lot of people to interact with, whereas for Mary, she's with Cody 1 out of every 3 days, at least in the past. But the rest of the days, it's just her and Mariah in their, wing of their house back in Utah. So maybe for Mariah, she has heard a lot of her mom's pain, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing. I don't know. Emotions are our friends, and Mariah's having an emotion. That's what. It also makes me wonder about their dynamic. Maybe Mariah senses her mom's emotions, which is fine, and expresses them for Mary or something. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You shouldn't be crying. It's really not sad.
Honey, I promise I understand.
She has always wanted me to have another baby.
You okay?
Okay, so Mary says that Mariah always wanted me to have another baby. Okay, yeah. And so Mariah always wanted a sibling, and that's not unusual, especially when in your house you're looking at your other siblings. I mean, she has anyway, you know what I'm saying.
What's wrong?
You feel your mama's pain.
Yeah.
Oh, baby, I'm sorry.
That's nice to see. Yeah, I'm sure that makes Robyn feel better. I'm sure Robyn feels responsible. It's hard for her not to. She's not. She just got pregnant. And apparently that's the expectation, right? So this moment is, I think, good. It's good that Robyn made this gesture. But again, Robyn said this statement, are you feeling your mother's pain? It seems like Robyn, and she might be right, but if I were a little birdie on Robyn's shoulder, I would say, especially in moments like this, say something more general and ask a question. How are you feeling? Or would you like a hug or something? These kinds of statements are risky. All right, well, let's adjourn there for now. I want to open a card that I got in the mail. There's a mailing address on our website. It might be below in the description as well if you want to send us a package. We are having our 16th anniversary show in September, mid-September, one of the weekends. We're doing 16 hours of live streaming over a weekend. So if you want to send in your cards or postcards, those are pretty easy to send, or fan art, we love the fan art, or whatever, crafts, you can send it to that address and we'll open it at the anniversary. But in the meantime, I have a card here from Raquel, and it's a coffee-themed card. I don't know if that's Seattle related. Do people still think of Seattle as being like coffee central? In the United States, anyway. In the 90s, it's where Starbucks is from and where like nice coffee in the United States kind of got its start, or at least that's what us Seattleites or Gen X Seattle. Anyway, this is a nice card and letter. I'll read this later. Thank you so much for that, Raquel. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.